Rise and shine. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and tune in to Good Morning Aurora. News, weather, and really cool interviews. Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m.
Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. The time is 8 a.m. You're listening to Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. We've got news for you guys, and we also have an interview for you today. So without further delay, let's get into it. As you know, listening to yesterday's news, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeated the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday for the Super Bowl, 31-9, giving Tom Brady his 7th Super Bowl win. Shouts out to all you sports fans out there. Kane County's Vote mobile van is returning to Elgin, Aurora, and West Dundee. So starting yesterday through the 10th, the van will be at 1952 West Galena Boulevard from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The van will then be at Prisco's Community Center on February 11th and 12th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So shouts out to Kane County. Make sure that you guys get out there and vote. Yesterday, early voting began across all locations. February 18th is the last day to request a mail-in ballot. February 22nd, early voting ends, and February 23rd is primary election day, the last day to vote in person. Get to know who the candidates are and who is running in our local elections. Township level, we have interviewed Alex Arroyo, who's running for supervisor. We've also interviewed Bonnie Kunkel and Sherry Spears, who are both running for trustee. Good luck to everybody who is running. The mayoral elections are also taking place this year. Our incumbent, Richard Urban, has 2 challengers. The first is Mr. John Leish, formerly of the, I believe, the school district, East Aurora School District. And second is Alderman Lofshe. So get to know who the candidates are, get to know who's running and what they're standing on, and make sure that you guys get out there and vote. This is very important. Okay. The next Art and Market Aurora will be Saturday the 13th. So that's a Saturday coming up. Get to know Art and Market Aurora every second and fourth Saturday at Society 57. Aurora Public Library also has a lot of great stuff that's happening. So this week, starting today, actually, we've got a lot of good things. So first things first. There is a teen movie, The Hate U Give, based on the smash hit book by Angie Thomas. The film's a must-see, and that's at 3:30 p.m. today. You need to email teens@aurorapubliclibrary.org for the Discord link. Seed Starting, a University of Illinois Extension Master Gardener, will present tips on starting your own plants. That's at 7 o'clock p.m. today. Registration is required for that. Tomorrow, there's a COVID-19 information session provided by the Kane County Health Department. That's at 6 p.m. Registration is required. Tai Chi for the Chinese New Year is the 12th at 10 a.m. Registration is required. And virtual First Chapter Fridays is Friday the 12th at 3 o'clock p.m. So you can check all that out on the Aurora Public Library's Facebook page and also via Zoom. Okie dokie. So moving right along, the weather is still cold outside. Temperature right now is 0. So shouts out to God for giving us this cold weather. Also, a wonderful organization called Clearbrook. We have posted this, and now we're sharing it with you guys again. Clearbrook is hosting a virtual Friends Wine and Craft Beer tasting on February 27th from 6 to 7 p.m. Wine and beer packages will be offered from Church Street Brewing Company and the prestigious Martin Ray Vineyards and Winery. It'll be a lot of fun for wine connoisseurs, and there's even going to be a silent auction. Clearbrook is home and family to over 8,000 children and adults impacted by intellectual and developmental disabilities. Get to know more about this awesome organization by visiting their website at clearbrook.org. And the event has been shared to our Facebook page and our Instagram and Twitter. If you don't have Twitter, or if you have Twitter, connect with us there. Look at this. People calling early in the morning. Connect with us there. And also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on Spotify, YouTube, and iTunes. And that is the news. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, good to see you today and good to meet you.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. Very
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So for our listeners and the viewers that don't know you, let us know who you are.
Hi, my name is Javier Burgos.
Okay.
I have my own accounting firm, CPA firm, out in Aurora,
Okay.
and at the Farnsworth offices at 1444 North Farnsworth, Suite 106.
1444 North Farnsworth, Suite 106.
Yes, sir.
Farnsworth, where at on Farnsworth?
By Indian Trail Road, right?
Oh, okay.
North Indian Trail Road, about a block and a half on the west side of the street.
By the Duncan?
By the dump, well, further down from the dump. On the left-hand side.
Okay. Got to map it out for the people so we know
Yes.
what we're talking about. Now, where are you from?
I'm from Chicago originally, born and raised in Chicago. Moved out here in 2004 with my family. We were looking for a different opportunity. We lived in the city for over 40 years. So
Okay.
me and my wife, in my second marriage, me and my wife were looking to raise our children in a different environment. So we settled into Aurora.
Happy with it?
Absolutely, best move we ever made.
Growing up, what impact did your mom have in your life?
My mother had a very big impact in my life. My mother was she was the homemaker, and she always instilled a lot of values into myself and my brothers in regards to being responsible,
Right.
being aware of your surroundings, giving back to the community, doing your best always, and always striving for excellence if you can. And if you don't succeed, try again. She always instilled that into myself and my siblings, which was very instrumental with me growing up in the city of Chicago.
Did you have a big family?
Yes, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. From there we have, we have nieces and nephews. We have grandchildren as well too. We come from a big family.
What was Chicago like growing up in your era? What was your Chicago experience like?
My Chicago experience was I lived in the inner city in
Okay.
Chicago during the time down there by Division and National,
Okay.
which today is called East Village, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good experience because I grew up in a racially diverse neighborhood,
Right.
which was extremely I'm extremely grateful for. It gave me exposure to not only myself but also to other cultures and other opportunities to have friends with different backgrounds,
Right.
which was great. I have to say it was one of the most greatest time during my life, even though we weren't financially set,
Right.
but we had a lot of love in the household.
Yeah, and Division Street, for those that are not familiar with it, is a very diverse street.
Yes.
I mean, it'll take you through a lot of diversity.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Now, we look back from time to time,
Yes.
as we are older now, more mature, and doing our things in our businesses. What experiences from then or lessons do you carry with you now, if any?
Well, the biggest lesson ever that I carried with me was given to me by my high school teacher. Her name was Mrs. Martinez. She was the bookkeeping class that I took when I was in high school. I graduated from Wells High School
Okay.
in Chicago. And she always instilled hard work and dedication, but also she instilled in us, this drive of always trying to achieve for excellence and to be adaptable as well too. If you don't succeed, try again, but adapt and learn from your mistakes. And
Interesting.
I think that has helped me throughout my life, throughout my career. I went on and graduated from Roosevelt University with a degree in business administration and focus in accounting.
Okay.
And then from there, I went on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead. No, yeah, definitely.
And then from there, I went on and I worked for the Internal Revenue Service
Ah.
right afterwards. And I worked there for about 12 years. I worked for 4 different divisions within the Internal Revenue Service. I worked for the examination division, was an investigator for them as well too.
Okay.
I was with the collection department and also with the appeals office to do appeals of tax cases
Okay.
and tax court cases that went to trial in the Southern District Court of Illinois at the federal building.
Right. The Dirksen.
Yes, the Dirksen building.
So what year did you graduate college?
1988.
All right. 1988. What's Javier What's life like for Javier in 1988? What are we looking at? What's prospects looking like? Are we ready to join the IRS? Was that on the menu?
That was on the menu.
Okay.
When I was given the opportunity, it was an opportunity that my teacher, actually, Mrs. Martinez, opened the door for me with a recruiter. Even years afterwards, even years after I graduated, I still kept relationships with her. You know,
good stuff.
On the phone, talk with her. So she provided me my first opportunity for employment, which I was very grateful for. And it was start of a new day. I got married as well to my first wife. We moved out. We lived in the Brickyard area.
Okay.
Then we had a son there, and I worked for the Internal Revenue Service, like I mentioned, for 12 years.
Yeah.
After that, then I went to work for a different department within the government.
Okay. Within the IRS? Within the internal?
Within the federal government.
Okay. All right.
So my career is strictly federal government, all
Okay.
31 years. I just retired recently.
Very cool.
December of 2019.
Very cool.
Before the pandemic started.
Just made it.
Just made it.
What was the experience like? Take me to the first day of working for the IRS. How you feeling? What's that like?
Very nerve-wracking, first of all.
Okay.
Because in my family, I was the first one to graduate from college.
Okay.
So working, no one else had experience in the white-collar environment. I was the first one from
Sure.
my family.
Right.
So everyone was blue-collar.
Right.
So for me, it was totally, it was scary, to be honest with you, because I didn't know what to expect.
Right.
You know, I had all these expectations, and then when I started working, after a good couple of years, I started to finally get comfortable working in that environment.
What
It took
did
a
you
while.
expect going in?
I had no idea. Since nobody else in my family had any experience,
Right.
you rely on what's on television back then.
That's right. Yeah.
As a role model and a roadmap as to what society expected of you to be.
Right.
So I try to live up to the best of my ability, but always be honest with myself and with my Lord. So I always did my best for every agency that I worked for.
So in your first years of working with the IRS, you mentioned that you eventually got it.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Like I think you said 2 years in.
Yes.
2 years in, you started to learn it.
Mm-hmm.
What is it like working there? Is it like you clock in, you got a computer, you do your thing?
Well, back then we didn't have computers, so we did everything. I was all manual because I was an auditor. Right? Came in as an auditor.
Right.
So my objective was to audit individual tax returns, small business, corporation, and S corps at that time.
Okay.
And partnerships. So they provided me with all the training, with all the certifications I needed. Also, they gave me an opportunity and paid for my CPA license.
Very cool.
Which was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. It was a
Right.
great opportunity for me as well to expand my education as well. So I took advantage of that situation. They paid for a review class to take the CPA exam,
Right.
which is a very difficult drilling exam, which is over 2.5 days that you have to sit for the CPA exam.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Half day the first day, then 2 full 8-hour days, Thursday and Friday.
And the CPA is a certified public accountant.
That's right.
Okay. Now, as you're going through the schooling for CPA, within the IRS, within Work for Internal Revenue Service, what's that like? Taking on something new in a job that you're already in that's new. What's that like?
Nerve-wracking, to say the least, because you have expectations and you have your goals and your missions that you want to accomplish in your life as well too. So I always thought, my mother always taught me to think about strategically. They call it strategic planning these days, but back then it was just planning. Plan your life out.
Right.
Where are you going to be a year from now, 3 years from now? Where do you see yourself?
Right.
How are you going to accomplish these goals? What skills do you need to acquire in order to accomplish your goal? My goal was to be a certified public accountant and also a certified fraud examiner within the Internal Revenue Service as well too. So those were my two long-term goals that I wanted to accomplish. And how do I do that? By the opportunity and experience that I was able to have working for the Internal Revenue Service.
What does the general public get wrong about the Internal Revenue Service?
Good question. Very good question. The Internal Revenue agents are just like anyone else. They have a family, They're working 9 to 5. They're dedicated civil servants. They're as human as you and me are. They make errors, but they're also very compassionate as well too.
Right.
I know that IRS unfortunately gets a really bad rap when it comes to representation, but the Internal Revenue Service, the individuals within their organizations are wonderful people. If you get to know them on a one-on-one basis, there's no difference than me and you first.
I had to call the IRS one time, and I was on that phone for 3 hours. I had to wait, come back, and the lady on the phone, I'm hearing her type it as I'm talking to her. She's doing this, getting this squared away. I got a letter from the IRS saying I owed them like $60 or something like that. That lady and me went through it on the phone for 3 hours.
Yeah.
I got it done, and I wrote her a nice. I told let me talk to the supervisor. I told the supervisor, like, look, whoever that lady was, really nice. I kind of get it because people are rude to when they call them, they curse them out, hang up. Do IRS? Do people who work for the IRS? Is there a certain kind of person who can do that job good?
Yes. You have to have good customer service skills.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
That's for sure.
All right.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And that skill can either come naturally because you can interact with individuals,
Right.
or over time you actually develop the skills in order to deal with the hard calls, the people who are having difficult times. But at the same time, on both sides, you have to realize when you call customer service, even within the IRS or in any department of revenue or any other government agency, is treating that person like you want yourself to be treated.
Right.
And if you treat that person that way, then more than likely they're going to treat you the same. More than likely, unless of course people have their bad days.
Sure. Regardless, that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
How much does what's going on nationally affect life at the Internal Revenue Service?
Oh, it affects it very much, very much, because there's rules and regulations that are always constantly are changing. So there are regulations and the effect on the tax return, the effect on the individual, and the practice of CPAs preparing tax returns. That's why it's so important always to ensure when you do hire a CPA that CPA is current and is registered or certified within the state of Illinois. Because we have to have continuing professional education because the tax laws constantly change. Every year there's a session that we have to take in order to get ourselves updated with all the new regulations and how that affects individual returns, corporate returns, partnership, and S corps.
Why do tax laws change so much? Is it because the government is changing them to stay abreast of what's going on with the society, or is it society, things are happening, the government's like, okay, well now we need to...
It's a mixture of both.
Okay.
Actually. It's a mixture of both.
Okay. What year was your first move from the first department you were with to the second?
5 years after, so in 1992, 93, that's when I received a position with the investigative department. So I became an investigator there. I'm one of the very few first Hispanic law enforcement officers within the Internal Revenue Service, because there weren't that many, and there weren't that many who spoke Spanish as well too. So
right.
That was another opportunity I was getting.
1992. Wow.
1992.
What was that like?
Very interesting. Very
now,
interesting in my life.
Was one of your supervisor bosses say, hey, look, Javier's the guy we need? You were promoted internally, or did you apply for that through being in?
No, I applied internally, and what happened was during that 5 years when I was an auditor, I worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office on a number of high-profile cases.
Okay.
And the U.S. Attorney was impressed as to how I handled myself.
Okay.
And my knowledge of tax laws and organizing and analyzing records for that department, that he made a recommendation to my bosses that they consider hiring me.
Gotcha. Now, the U.S. Attorney you're working with, this is in regards to like fraudulent case,
Yeah, exactly.
Catching the bad guys.
Yes, basically.
Where does the line between a financial mistake, who knows?
Yes, of course.
And fraud?
intent. You have to document intent.
Okay.
The crux of a criminal investigation is the intent of the party. So if the party intended to deceive, okay, and commit a crime, it is the investigator's obligation to document for the U.S. Attorney's Office the intent of that individual through his actions
Okay.
or his inactions.
Okay.
And there's elements of a crime. If you're going to charge someone a crime, you have to know what the elements of the crime are.
Sure.
And then based on the facts, you have to draw up the facts that can support the elements of the crime before you can charge someone a criminal offense.
Okay. So you could see a discrepancy for $10,300.
Mhm.
That does not necessarily mean
Exactly.
that we're watching a crime take place or
Exactly.
start. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's what that person does with them, and if they continue, and if the dollar amount is material as well too. So materiality depends on the prosecutor.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So now that you've made this jump to the investigations, 1992 and 1993, how we feeling? What's life like?
Oh, excited.
Yeah.
Excited for
Playing
the
baseball on the
opportunity.
weekend or something? What's life like for Javier at this time?
Well, working a lot of hours because of my ability to speak Spanish. I went to school. I went to Glencoe, Georgia, for at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center,
Okay.
where they train criminal investigators and also undercover agents there in Glencoe, Georgia, at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center.
Okay.
For IRS, believe it or not, a lot of people don't realize, but IRS is also involved with sting operations, and they actually have accountants that are money launderers as well too. So there's a group, just dedicated group, which I was privileged to be a member of, and all we did was we laundered money for a number of illegal operations.
That sounds so cool.
It was unbelievable. That's where I really learned my skills in regards to being an auditor and putting accounting systems together, because I had to. So I had to redesign the accounting system in order to deceive and conceal the money laundering that was going on, and structure it in a way that it became from illegitimate to legitimate. So,
Interesting.
very much so. I was very fortunate to be, and I did that for 3 years because there was a burnout rate in that particular department. So after 3 years, they decided to pull me out
Why is there a burnout rate?
because you're constantly working, constantly. You're on call. My pager back then, we had pagers.
Right.
My pager will go off. I work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My family life suffered because of it. You know, my first marriage ended up in divorce because I was never home.
Right.
I was always working and learning, and that caused a great divide in my family life.
Sure. I, as an individual, when I look at law enforcement, I think to myself that with all the elements of crime that are out there, from money laundering to human trafficking, law enforcement consistently needs to redevelop itself, get fresh, see what's happening, keep your nose to the street, what's going on. Is that a fair statement?
That's the very first thing.
Okay. How did financial crime change in the time that you started? You know, what was I guess trending when you started, and then what things came about and became new threats?
When I started, it was a lot of financial crime, tax evasion, more tax evasion than anything else. How to avoid paying taxes, but again, the element of intent was a malicious element of intent. That's the main thing.
Right.
Okay, because you can legally not avoid paying taxes, but pay what is legally owned, the minimum that's legally owned.
Right.
If you have a good accountant, okay, that knows the rules and the laws and the regulations, they can review and they can work with you in order to ensure that you pay what is legally the minimum amount of taxes that is owed on your tax situation.
So, for example, there was much chagrin and consternation at the last president because he paid $750, I think, which was absolutely legal.
Correct.
Despite the optics of how it looked.
Exactly.
There was no law. That was what was said, and that's what he paid.
That's correct.
That kind of skill is good to have in law enforcement.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, what came next after your investigations period? So
Well,
then
and then I
the
went
burnout
back.
rate.
Yeah, and then after that, I spent 3 years in a general group, which did embezzlement fraud, white collar fraud,
Okay.
theft, and employee misappropriation fraud.
Employee misappropriation fraud. What's that?
That's where if an individual company has a contract with a government agency,
Right.
and perfect example is when I worked for the Environmental Protection Agency. I worked for them right afterwards.
Very cool.
And it was a contract case where the individual was supposed to be testing automobiles for emission testing.
Right.
Okay? So the individual will perform the services, bill the government, get the money that he billed,
Right.
but the product that he performed was not specific to what the contract conditions were. Because except for substituting or providing the correct vehicles that needed to be tested, it was cheaper for him to substitute those vehicles for other less well-run and maintained vehicles, and the testing that he performed on those vehicles was not in specification as in what was involved in the contract.
I see.
So that's claim fraud.
And
so-
he is defrauding the government.
Exactly. By not providing a
see.
product specifically to what his contract is.
Wow. What's the difference? So we know what terms are. We know what the terms blue collar mean and white collar in regards to work, society, and not committing crimes. What's the difference for those who don't know of a blue collar crime and a white collar
A
crime?
blue collar crime is a street crime. Let's put it as a street crime.
Right.
Robbery, homicide, carjacking. You can put down there assault,
Right.
battery. Those are blue collar street
Right.
crimes, basically. White collar crime is bank fraud, wire fraud, claims fraud,
Right.
embezzlement. Anything, any instrument that deals with that has a monetary value is considered a white fraud, like trading as well too, like the stock market.
Right.
Insider trading.
Right.
So it's an array of white collar crime. The definition can span from as simple as a stockbroker to an executive who's embezzling money from the company.
Things like the Ponzi scheme come to
Huge,
mind.
yes.
The Bernie Madoffs.
Yes.
The Paul Manaforts.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of crime. It does seem, though, that those kind of crimes have traditionally resulted in either not being prosecuted aggressively, or the perpetrators getting away with
A lighter sentence.
a lighter sentence.
Yes. Yes.
You are not the spokesman for law enforcement, but why is that?
It's the sentencing guidelines, because each prosecuting office has to comply with what the sentencing guidelines are for that particular crime. So you can have a crime of homicide with a first degree, second degree, third degree.
Right.
And based on the sentencing guidelines, the judge can institute and has discretion in which one, depending on the factors of each case.
Sure. Right.
Which is the same application for white collar crime, unfortunately. And the way that the white collar crime laws are written, they're less strenuous on restitution than it is for the individual who has blue collar crime.
Meaning, a person could go out here and commit manslaughter in the third degree,
That's correct.
and restitution could, 8 years, it might be 5. Restitution is millions of dollars, like a lot of money. That would seem like that's what you would need in a financial crime. Right?
Absolutely. Now you understand our frustration.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I do believe that law enforcement, especially with these financial types of crimes, I do believe that from what I've seen, you guys are very aggressive in pursuing them. Is there a moment when things get too hard for the FBI and you bring in, or excuse me, the IRS and you bring in the FBI?
Oh, yes.
Or is the FBI always with you? How does that work?
The U.S. Attorney's Office, if you get a case that you can push up to the U.S. Attorney's Office, if you can meet certain requirements
Right.
in order for that case to be referred to the U.S. Attorney's Office. The U.S. Attorney's Office under the Department of Justice, their law enforcement arm is the FBI.
Right.
Okay. So what we do is if we have a case that flows to the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI will come and join the case with us. So
Right.
we do a joint case together. And it's known for the IRS to also have cases with the FBI and other law enforcement agencies, local, state, and other government agencies as well, too, as a grand jury. So now the U.S. Attorney's Office, Department of Justice, is in charge of that case, as opposed to the IRS, the Department of Treasury. Because the Department of Treasury cannot prosecute crimes. They can only recommend crimes to be prosecuted to the U.S. Attorney's Office, which is the Department of Justice.
Aha, I see.
So that's the prosecuting arm of the investigative for the Treasury Department.
I see. So it is entirely possible for red flags to show up through financial transactions. This is looking, messed up tax returns, lots of dollars. But if certain criteria is met, like a pattern, this could transform into like money laundering or drugs.
Yes, illicit activities.
Okay, right.
Mm-hmm.
Aha.
Or it could not be, and it could be settled at the civil side. That's where the Treasury Department has a criminal investigation division
Right.
and a civil investigation as well too.
Right. You guys ever kick in doors and stuff like that?
Yes.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah, it is. When I tell my story, people they say, "You're an accountant and you did all these things." I'm not, and I always tell everybody, I am not the traditional accountant. Okay.
Yeah.
Traditional accountant.
Right.
I'm not that traditional accountant. Am I conservative? Yes, I am.
Right.
Because it's by nature.
Certainly.
But because of my experience, I am not your typical accountant. I look at your situation totally different. I look at it from the lens of my life experience as working with internal revenue and also working with other departments. How can I provide the best product for my customer?
Okay. Now let's talk about Burgos and Associates.
Yes.
When did it start?
Well, actually, that started once I left Internal Revenue Service. So, and back in 2001 is when I left Internal Revenue Service. So, as a government employee, I put in for an outside employment request, which just basically means that I can either run my business or work for another entity. But it's very restrictive within the government. You can't really work for anyone else. You can work for yourself, but they do not normally allow you to work for anyone else. So
Right.
I went to business for myself.
Right.
Now, as a government employee, I was restricted what I could do. Okay?
Sure.
I could prepare tax returns, which I enjoyed from the first time I ever prepared a tax return to take the CPA exam.
Mm-hmm.
I strictly enjoyed because I love puzzles. That's one of the things. To me, it's like putting a puzzle together.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So
I love it.
yeah, it's very enjoyable for me.
Yeah.
I really when I take a look at a case, I love developing a nice strategy for my clients. I love reading regulations and looking at the laws and see what can we do in order to minimize the amount of tax that my client has to pay legally. And that I always tell my clients that I always have an engagement letter as well with them, so that they know what my rules. What the condition of the terms are in the engagement letter. These are the services I'm going to provide. This is what I'm going to do. These are my responsibility. These are your responsibility. This is my expectation. These are your expectations.
Right.
And then we can move on. Move on forward.
Sure.
To
Right.
me, it's very important. Plus, it also covers me for liability purposes. If anybody ever wants to sue me saying that I either did not perform within my engagement letter, or there was a mistake done in the tax return, that it was either my mistake because I misinterpreted the law,
Sure.
or if my client withheld information from me that I wasn't aware of, then I'll just make sure that I'm always covered for insurance
Gotcha.
purposes.
Right. So 2001
Yes.
is when it started.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah, and it basically was out of my home. No, I did tax returns for my family members and
Right.
a couple clients.
Start with them. You know, they're going to hit you up.
Yes, yeah, of course.
Uncle Javi, what's up? You get the taxes.
Yeah,
So now, being in business for yourself, what did you like or maybe not like about what's new about being in business for yourself and not working for the government?
The freedom that you have.
Okay.
Yeah. The freedom that you have to set your own schedule, to work when you want to work, to have a better life balance at home,
Yes.
which is very important to me.
Very.
Very
Yeah.
important. Now that I have my second marriage, and I've been married now to a wonderful woman since 2002. Very supportive, very fortunate. She also was a government employee. She retired last year.
Okay.
So we're both retirees. So living that last, and we have our youngest daughter is 18 years old, graduating from West High School this year.
Shout out to West.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very cool.
So actually, she's going to be interviewing with you guys here very soon as well too. She's the one that has her own business.
That's right. That is correct. Yes. Good friend Bob told me about that. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
I am interested to know, from your perspective, what's wrong with the tax laws? If anything, what's wrong with the tax laws?
What's wrong with the tax laws is that they're not applied equally throughout the masses. So what I mean by that is individuals in a higher tax bracket have more opportunities to use the tax laws in order to have loopholes that will reduce the amount of tax liability that they have to have. Okay? Middle class and lower class individuals don't have as many opportunities
Right.
as the individuals who are wealthier, because there's more tax loopholes for them
Right.
than there are for the middle class and for those that are in the lower class.
You know, I sit here, I listen to you, I think about other conversations I had with members of law enforcement, and it seems that were it not for small things like the tax bracket loopholes for folks and a couple of other things that the state's attorney and I have talked about, if it were not for those small things, the system could work for everybody. Is that a fair statement?
That's the first thing.
Okay. And I really want people to take that away from this interview when we're talking to you, because I do believe that the work that you have provided, the work that you've done, is really important. I mean, there's bad guys out here that are doing terrible things financially, which has its tentacles in a lot of stuff, and they need to be taken down. But the little guy should also be able to take part.
Oh, absolutely.
And not worry about things.
Absolutely.
So, what's the hours of Burgos and Associates?
That's the wonderful thing. I make up my own hours. So normally it's my normal day runs from 10 until 5, but last night I was working until 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Because I had a client of mine that needed something done, and so it was a time-sensitive document that had to be submitted by this morning. So I was able to accommodate it as well.
Is the IRS like it is on TV?
On TV, the IRS needs to portray that image. That's my honest opinion.
Okay. All right. Because you see that, like just us, like watching it, just white shirts and ties and all that, and Bill, did you get the MO? Dun dun dun. You know. What do you miss, if anything, about the IRS working for the government?
Working for the government, the relationship that I established with people. I always had a good working relationship with my co-workers, with my employees, because I was a supervisor, and then my last year within the federal government, I was the assistant federal security director at O'Hare, and I established good working relationships with all the law enforcement agencies, state, local, and federal government. So I miss the personal relationships that you have with people. Even though I still stay in contact with a lot of people, but I'm not in that role anymore. So Thank God my phone doesn't ring every day. I'm
Right.
on call 24 hours.
What does America mean to you?
America, to me, is that is a question, a very good question, because to me, America means liberty, means opportunity, and it also means that it has given me a way to support my family. And to me, just being in this country and being a citizen of the United States, I took that oath very, very seriously. And I'm grateful and thankful for the opportunities that were afforded to me. A kid that grew up in an inner city neighborhood that was able to go from an accountant all the way up to being the administrative staff of the TSA at O'Hare International Airport. I was part of the executive staff there, and for my ascension is tremendous. I'm here to tell everybody that if you can dream it, stay with it. It's not easy, but you can accomplish your goals. And if God blesses you, and the world opens up to you. And it's a wonderful thing, because I have a lot more stories that I can share. We don't have enough time for me to have stories to tell you, but I can tell you this. I have been, for a young man that grew up in the inner city, I have traveled throughout the world. And I have seen, and I've been privileged enough to have friends from other countries and other cultures and other religions, and it has enriched me as a person, per se.
The show ends on a final note, or excuse me, on a positive note. What's your message to the listeners, and especially the youth?
Oh, yes.
The youth of Aurora.
Yes.
What's your message to the youth of Aurora for today?
The message, my message to them is, I know things seem hard right now in your life, okay? But the beautiful thing is if you have perseverance, you have dedication, and if you want it bad, if you pray hard enough, good, positive things can happen. Remember that there's always going to be a good time and a bad time in your life. But always remember, behave in the same manner when you have bad times as you have good times, because those times will pass. And don't look at your current situation, but tell yourself, where do I see myself 3 years from now, a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now? Where do I want to end up in my life? Do I want to have a positive influence in society, or am I going down the right path to have that accomplished? Right. And if not, then re-examine yourself. All right? Mentors are very important. Find someone who's out there. There are a lot of people out there, people of color, people of every nationality that would provide you with an opportunity. Okay? So don't ever give up on your dreams. Continue to strive for your dreams. Are we going to fail? Absolutely. I have failed so many times I can't even tell you how many times I failed. Right. But never gave up. Never gave up. I had a real good friend of mine who was a Marine sergeant, and even though I was never in the military, he treated me like I was in the military, because he always instilled that right in me. You know, always. Right. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Once a successful person, always a successful person. You can always accomplish things, but be gracious and be thankful.
It's a great message. So, on behalf of Good Morning Aurora, we appreciate you sitting down with us, man. This was a great conversation.
I enjoyed it immensely. I'm just hoping maybe next time you might invite me back for another edition.
I will, yeah, definitely. We'd love to know more about your story and everything. And don't forget to check out, if you need help preparing taxes, or any other accountant-related services.
That's correct.
Burgos and Associates.
Yes, sir.
And what's the address?
1444 North Farnsworth, Suite 106. The nice thing, nosotros hablamos español también. So we speak Spanish as well.
And translate too, thank goodness. All right, you guys be blessed out there. Have a safe, positive, great, wonderful Tuesday. We'll see you back here tomorrow for more news. Peace, guys.